advising on during inspections of just making sure that those things were mitigated, but also making sure people have plans in place. Like, when we're doing our insurability deadlines, we're making sure that the home can be insured for the full value of rebuild.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. All right, how you doing? My name is Kevin C. McIntosh, host of The Closing Table right here. Welcome back. We appreciate that. And joining us as a guest today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Sherrie Figueroa. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Kevin?
Hey, good, Sherrie. Good, Sherrie. Thanks for asking. And we are here so we can pick your brain about your market and see what's going on in the world of real estate where you currently serve. But before we even get that far, I usually like to start things off a little bit more casual with a quick game called Word Association for you. It's essentially just me spewing out words, and you just give me the first thing that comes to your mind, whether that's a corresponding word, a definition, a story, whatever the case. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this, Sherrie. First one, title work.
Ooh, messy.
Community.
Community is important. Community is why people move, why people choose to live where they live.
Good one. Rent control.
That's a big one in Boulder. Hot topic, depends on what side you are. But I think overall a decent idea with some, considerations for the homeowners as well.
Gotcha. Multifamily.
Multifamily is great. I don't deal in lots of investment properties, but I feel like it's such a great way to invest into the market, especially if you can live in a duplex and rent out the other side.
My favorite. Last one, comps.
Comps are important. You have to be really detail oriented and, focused on the specific neighborhoods, property type, when you're pulling your comps. So don't look on Zillow for, what your Zestimate is, because those aren't real comps. Trust your real estate professional.
What, you mean to tell me Zillow isn't a reliable source? Oh my goodness.
If I could sell
Mind blowing
for the Zestimate, I'd be making way much more money.
That's a good point. I love that. Thank you, Sherrie. Starting things off with us a little bit fun on the casual end. So right now, we know you are a professional when it comes to real estate, but we want to know Sherrie on a more personal level. So 60 seconds or less, can you tell us who is Sherrie outside of real estate?
Yes. First and foremost, I'm a mom and a wife. So married with two lovely kids. Got a 7-year-old son who cracks me up. He's, light of my life. And then my beautiful 10-year-old daughter who's going to middle school next year. I can't believe it. I'm from Miami Beach. I've been in Boulder for 18 years. So I've still, been in Miami longer than I was than I've been in Boulder, but I'm getting close there. But I, before I was a real estate agent, I was a massage therapist, believe it, which actually does translate lots of the qualities that I kind of, were able to learn there just about building a relationship business and, massaging the deal.
Massaging the deal. Okay.
I mean, I love to hike and dance and do yoga. So I'm the typical Boulderite.
Boulderite. There you go. Beautiful. Thank you for explaining that. You said you are originally from Miami Beach. That is like the tip of Miami right there. So with that being said, talk about the culture shock or the cultural differences between Miami, Florida and Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder, Colorado. Yes. I mean, culturally, it's they're worlds apart, right? I mean, people like to say Miami's like a third world country, and there is no other place like it.
Really?
Just all the different cultures and languages. But I love where I'm from, but I would have a hard time raising my kids there. And so
Mm.
I'm really grateful to be here where I feel, pretty safe. My kids can get an amazing education, and the quality of life here in Boulder is just amazing. But it was a bit of a culture shock. Just like a funny story. When I first moved here, I'm driving down the street, and there's this person that just, jumps across the street and starts crossing the street, like not even looking. And I screech to a halt, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, these people are insane here. They just crossed the street. Well, turns out that unlike Miami, we actually have, pedestrian crosswalks that the driver is supposed to stop for you,
Mm-hmm.
And I just was completely unaware. Granted, this was, 20 years ago or something, but Boulder is just, a way different vibe,
Yeah.
and it's gotten bigger, but I do feel like it's really white, just to be honest, and that's not really the difference. But
Nice.
affluent, just like Miami, super affluent, and lots of good food and culture to be found here.
There it is. There it is. Appreciate the transparency there. That's the fact that you mentioned you didn't feel like you could raise your kids in Miami. What was that due to? Is it the culture? Is it a safety thing? Or
I
is
mean,
it
it's
just is
dying.
it that it's cool but Boulder's just better or
I mean, schools for sure.
okay.
But we visit often, and I struggle with, finding a nice park to take my kids to, or just, I mean, it's very geared
Hmm.
towards nightlife culture and that kind of thing. And I
Right,
have
right,
a
right.
family that raised their kids, and I grew up there, but I just grew up way differently. Like I grew up
Mm-hmm.
super
Of
fast,
course.
and here I'm like, my kids going to middle school, and they know a lot less. Like where I was at in middle school and where she's going in, it's just different. But yeah, I
Right.
mean, there's a lot more crime, and I feel safer here. But
There
I
you
love
go. There
Miami.
you
I'm
go.
not going to hate on Miami. I love Miami. It was when
How
the
could you
Nuggets played the
not?
Heat. It was a tough call for me.
Oh yeah, you are. Oh wow, isn't that something? You being from Miami, living in Colorado, you got both Miami and Denver in the finals. Congratulations to Denver for winning the first ever championship in
That's right.
franchise history.
Yeah.
Very sweet, by the way. Okay, we already went there, right? In regards to talking about your market, so let's go into it a little bit more. You said Boulder, Colorado. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Can you explain exactly a little bit more what's going on in Boulder? What makes that a unique market, first and foremost? Give the other areas that you do serve, and let's talk about the economics real estate wise. Give us some details on it.
Yeah. So Boulder is, a really amazing town. It's 30 minutes from Denver. So we have an international airport, 45 minutes from the airport, so you can access anywhere in the world from here. It's a
Mm-hmm.
huge college town. We have the University of Colorado, so CU Boulder here, which, Coach Prime has now put on the map even
Yes.
more. Um,
Yes.
but it's got everything that you can possibly want in a city. But one of the things that makes us super unique is all of our open space that we have here. So the city of Boulder itself is surrounded by about 150 miles of maintained trails and 45,000 acres of open space, which
Mm.
makes our market unique as well, because we have such
Yes.
limited inventory, because of, we're limited on what we can build. So it does make our inventory just more, desirable and expensive because of it.
Yes.
We
Yes.
have,
Yes.
like, Boulder Creek Path runs through the entire city, so you can literally bike from one end of town to the other, and even to some of the surrounding areas. So it's super bikeable, and it's a destination. Like triathletes and cyclists and runners, they all come to train here at altitude. So it is a world class
Mm.
destination. Not to mention, we have a huge tech and like finance, venture capitalism industry here, and world class skiing. We have our own mountain 30 minutes away, and then 2 hours to Vail and Breckenridge and Aspen. So, 16 Michelin star restaurants. Like we're a foodie town for
Uh
sure.
oh. Nice.
So, I mean, there's, plenty of like things for people to love about Boulder and want to move here. And during the pandemic, it's like, why not, right? If I can work from home. I mean, I remember moving to Boulder and going to a coffee shop and being like, what, where are people? Like, why aren't they at work? You know, the coffee shops
Mhm.
were bustling. And it's because they don't have to go into an office. You know, it's like so many people are entrepreneurs here, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, we'd have a great industry, I think, that attracts people.
Nice, nice. That's. I literally just had the same talk with another agent in the Seattle area. I was learning about Seattle, and they were speaking on the fact that they have such limited land to build on. Like it's almost to the fact like they literally can't build anymore. So that's another thing that's driving that market. Home prices complete. I think they said the average was like $800,000. That was crazy to me. Now, are we talking about $800,000 in that market? We aren't talking that much for an average price, are we?
Oh yeah, we're talking in the millions actually.
Oh
So
my
yeah, so
god!
Boulder County, I pulled the stats, and this is Boulder County, is 1.1 million for a detached home and 600,000 for an attached. So a condo, you know, an entry level condo. You're looking at 600,000 in the county, and then for the city of Boulder, we go up from there. You know, I think 135 was the average for the city for a detached home. So yeah, we are well above, unfortunately. Fortunately,
Wow.
depending on how you look at it.
I'm trying to tell you, coming from where we are in the Midwest and Michigan right now, we're talking about average homes 200,000, 300,000,
I need to
four,
go buy a couple of
four and
those.
up. That's what I'm saying. Like for these prices in the Seattle and in the Colorado market, like you can come out here and buy two homes easily, two, three of them.
Hmm.
That is beyond like perspective, and oh man, it makes such a difference. Interesting though. It's a place that I think I would want to go visit. Anybody should go out there and check it out. Got some information that came from the chair of the Denver Metro Association of Realtors Market Trends Committee. They're saying sellers are becoming more realistic and willing to strategize their price reductions. In your experience, what are some effective strategies sellers can employ to attract buyers and facilitate successful transactions in this current market?
Well, this is really important. So I've aligned myself with a full service brokerage because I think that first and foremost, you know, pricing is important and presentation. So you need to cover
Mm-hmm.
both. And because our market has softened, believe it or not, you pricing is so important, right? So it's very hard to underprice in this market, and I generally advise my sellers, you know, to price competitively. But the strategy is to put your best foot forward. So I stage every home. I actually have a design. If you're living in the home, I have a designer come in and advise the client on, you know, how to put their best foot forward as far as, you know, cleaning up clutter or painting a bedroom, and sort of telling them the things that, you know, you don't want to hear from me, right? I don't want to be the bad guy. You know, put that cleaning away that your 10-year-old did or whatever it is. But making sure that the home is super presentable, because, you know, stage listings sell for 2.5 faster and for an average of 8 to 10% more, which more than
Correct.
covers my commission, which is how I
Mm.
explain it. So you know, in general, I have a full service offering when I do a listing. But then we like to incentivize buyers, right? So if we know there's an issue that we're going to come up against, if we know that there's a roof replacement that has to happen, we might write it into the listing that the seller is willing to, you know, replace the roof, or give a contribution. One of the big ways that we're negotiating now is offering rate buy downs, and because oftentimes the seller has to pay for a rate buy down, so the buyer
Mm-hmm.
can't, you know, buy their own rate down, like a 3-1 buy down, where for 3 years your rate is 3% less the first year, 2% less the second year, and 1% less the third year, and that actually goes into an escrow account. So that at closing it comes from the seller net proceeds and it goes into an escrow account, so that the difference is being paid for the buyer
Mm-hmm.
every month on their mortgage, which is a huge bonus and actually is probably more beneficial than just saying, hey, we're going to take $10,000 off the price. right? And that's
Gotcha. Huh.
$10,000 less cash you need to bring to closing. This is actually saving them hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month. And, with the eye on being able to refinance when rates come down, within the next 6 to 18 months. So
Mm.
those are some, ways that we like to up front. I like to prep sellers. And then when I'm working on the buy side, they know as well. We kind of work out what is the best strategy and what they want going into it,
Hmm.
so that we're able to kind of negotiate that for them.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different creative ways that buyers and sellers can work with professionals to help get them more of the more of reach their goal, I should say, a lot faster or more efficiently. Just trusting in the professionals to do that type of thing, because like seller, what would you call it? Seller buy down, seller
Yeah,
buyback,
so the rate buy down, so a seller concession, and it
rate
can
buy down,
go
buy
to,
down.
yeah, a rate buy down.
Yep.
I mean, ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
though, the goal is I like to operate on both sides. Doesn't matter who I'm representing. I
Right.
like to operate like a team with the other side, and so I start that immediately. I set the tone of teammates, working together for a win-win situation for both parties, and
Yeah.
compromise. I mean, everyone's going to have to compromise in a deal. But I try to set that tone early so that the other side feels like we're working together towards a shared goal, which we are.
Right. Correct. Correct. Another thing that makes the Colorado market a little bit different, specifically compared to the Midwest, wildfires. Wildfire season is now 78 days longer than it was 50 years ago. I didn't just know this. I actually think I stole this from your profile. But with that being said, how do you educate your clients to prepare for the risks of a wildfire that could affect them?
Okay, so this one's complicated because it's not just wildfires, right? We're in, you know, do you see where we're at?
Looks
You know,
beautiful.
it's beautiful, but we are exposed to the elements here, right? And so it is a
Oh.
real concern. We have floods, fires, super intense winds, which often cause the
Hmm.
fires. And so, we definitely are a unique market in that not you don't have to be living like way up high in the mountain to be affected by a wildfire. So I think it was December
Mm.
30th, 2021. We had a massive, devastating fire come through our community. It was called the Marshall Fire, and it destroyed more than 1,000 homes and businesses in the Louisville Superior
Wow.
area. And if you look on the map, that is well east of the foothills. This is not tucked up in the mountain anywhere. Because of all that open space, we had 100-mile-an-hour winds that day. And so, a combination of power
Woo.
lines and just, people not burning safely caused this massive fire to rip through our community. Um, and the
Wow.
problem, was that a lot of these people didn't have enough insurance, right? So you think of someone who's owned their home for 30 years and,
Oh.
maybe they own it outright. And when they bought it 30 years ago, it was worth, 300,000 and now it's worth 1.5 million, right? So they didn't have enough coverage, which is really devastating. And then those people who
Mm.
are renting, right? They
Yeah. Oh my
You didn't have renter's
goodness.
insurance. And then
Mm.
if your home wasn't affected by the fire, it was all of the smoke damage, right? So that there were cul-de-sacs where every house burnt down except for one. And for one reason or another, it skipped it, but it was completely infiltrated in smoke, which is a whole nother level of damage. So all that to say that, knowing where these neighborhoods are that were affected by the fire, and you know advising on during inspections of just making sure that those things were mitigated, but also making sure people have plans in place, like when we're doing our insurability deadlines, we're making sure that the home can be insured for the full value of rebuild.
Yeah. Yes.
And then flood is another big one that comes with fire. So um, what happens is that when the fires rip through the forests, Not only
Mm-hmm.
do they, remove all that vegetation that normally would absorb the moisture when we get heavy rains, but they also create this like layer of, stickiness that prevents the soil from absorbing the water. So in September of 2013, we
Whoa.
had a massive flood come through our community as well, because it was like, I forget how much rain, but the hot fall, but I want to say it was a year's worth of rain fell in 8 days, essentially. And it
Whoa.
caused a massive flood. And many people lost their homes or just had damage, because of it. And then, flood maps were redrawn. So, when purchasing a home in Boulder County, you have to be aware of what homes were damaged in the flood, you know, um, whether or not they were properly mitigated. Flooding leads to mold, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, the due diligence process is important, and then also, insurability again, because flood insurance is a thing and very costly. Yeah, but I mean, the good news in
Yeah.
Boulder and actually in the state of Colorado is that the contract is written to protect the buyer. So we like to say the buyer is the most protected species out here. And so, the dates and deadlines and everything are written so that you can do your diligence and be protected in a contract, and, terminate a contract if there's something that you find that isn't, that you're not comfortable with. Or so, you are protected within. I mean, you need a
Right.
professional, though. You definitely need a professional to help you with that.
No, sure thing. No, but wow. We here in Michigan, we like to make fun of the fact that, we can get all 4 seasons in 2 days, and
Hmm.
and we talk about the crazy snow and winters that we have. But let me tell you something. I will take that over a wildfire. That is like the wildfires, the hurricanes, the earthquakes.
Yep.
Those are just like beyond, like I wouldn't know what to do. And here's another thing. I was today years old when I found out wildfires aren't just started by people leaving matches in the forest. I'm
Hmm.
so under the Smokey the Bear mentality that only we could prevent forest fires. Sometimes it just happens naturally.
Yep.
And I'm
Well, the
just like,
wind,
yo,
yeah.
no, please. I didn't even know the wind would be a factor.
Yes,
Please
I mean,
explain that.
you got a power line, right? So what happens when you have a live power line that gets blown down, like, by a force, 100-mile-per-hour wind? There are things. The bad thing about fires is that you literally have minutes to grab everything that's important to
Yeah.
you and go.
Oh.
And
Ooh.
so, having a like bug out, kit, and having all your documents and stuff like fire safe, being prepared for that is super important.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I would only imagine. I mean, to each its own. I get it though. It's part of the environment. It's just best to prepare for it now that you know where you are and things that happen. And another thing that I just found out today is you said once you have a flood, especially depending on how effective or how much it impacts a neighborhood, the city would go back and restructure the flood zones.
Yeah, so that
I
was
kind of
actually
find
FEMA.
that to be crazy.
Yeah, it was actually
Yes.
FEMA who did that. And so, I mean, and it was rightfully so. Like, our flood plan just was antiquated and wasn't designed for we had like a 500-year flood or a 100-year flood, or, so it's necessary, but, depending on where you live and what portion of your property is in the flood zone, it can be a really high expense to factor in. So,
Oh my goodness.
not being
See
in
the
the
thing
flood
ab-
zone is important to some buyers for sure.
the thing about that that gets me is imagine you buy a home or you're in a contract phase or whatever the case may be, and you get an inspection back, whatever the case. They say, "Oh no, this is in a safe flood zone," only to get an unexpected 8-day stretch of a year's worth of rain, and they restructure them and say, "Yeah, this is a flood zone." It's
Hmm.
like now I have to upgrade my insurance or all. It just seems such an inconvenience, such an inconvenience. But once again, if you know the market that you're living, you have a professional that can help you identify these things. They can make those adjustments and help you prepare for it.
That's
But
right.
it's just mind blowing to
I
me.
know it's mind blowing, but like I said, people are are buying houses at, over $1 million in a
Mm-hmm.
floodplain,
Mm.
because
Mm.
they want to be able to, hike out their back door. They want
Good
to
point.
have just like the luxury that this market affords you. It really is a unique place. I
Right,
think we've
right,
had a
right.
huge influx of migrants, right? Migrations from both coasts. A lot of the buyers that are coming to Colorado are, a lot of people who grew up in Colorado are leaving, and a lot of, people who are moving are from, East Coast or West Coast, and they see the value in
Mm-hmm.
the lifestyle that you can afford here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even me being where we are in Michigan currently, I've heard good things about Denver that made me consider. I've never thought of Denver before, but I'm starting to hear great things about it. So I get it. I get it. It's a place to check out. With talking about the presence of children under the age of 18, whenever you're dealing with clients, clearly it seems to be obviously a significant factor when they are making their decisions to buy. So how does the presence of children impact their home search criteria in the neighborhoods that they are interested in and your approach to helping them?
Yeah. There's not a bad neighborhood in Boulder, right? So, people often, when they're coming from out of town, they're like, well, what neighborhood should we avoid? And it's really like, what amenities do you not want? I don't know. So we have an amazing school system here. I think that there's definitely some certain neighborhoods that have, quote, better schools than others. And so people tend to be drawn to those neighborhoods. And they want to be, just walkable to downtown. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Nat Geo voted us like the happiest city in the US. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just feel like it's a very kid friendly, dog friendly, I'll say too, because with kids come dogs, town. And so, parents are drawn to like 60 plus public parks we have here, and, amenities like skate parks and swimming pools. And we have reservoirs for paddle boarding and rivers to kayak. And so I don't, think you can go wrong anywhere in Boulder. More likely they're going to want something more turnkey. With kids, it's hard to,
Yep.
buy a house that needs a ton of upgrading. So more
Mm-hmm.
than likely they're going to be drawn to, a product that's finished and ready to move in. Layout's probably going to be important. Families love a house with a basement so they can stick their kids in the basement, and all their toys down there. So, I think pretty much any neighborhood and home in Boulder is going to be a good choice for a family. You can't go wrong.
Nice. That's good to hear. You don't hear that too often with every market. I mean, sometimes there are, yeah, we want to pretty much stay away from this neighborhood, or this neighborhood would be better than the most. But to know that you pretty much have a market that's very safe. And I think, now that you mentioned it, I think that's where I might have heard of Denver being like a great livable place, or Denver might have came up because I think I saw an article that mentioned something about Denver being a family friendly market, or one of the best places to raise kids. So
Yep.
definitely makes sense.
Louisville was voted the best small town in the United States, and Louisville's within Boulder County here. In
Hmm.
each, town within the county has its own, arts program and like live music venue, festivals. We have tons of programming for, children and, people of all ages, really. Not to mention all of the like races and things like that. We have the Boulder that, every Memorial Day comes. It's a 10K race that all around our city.
Okay.
And I don't know, like 60,000 people run it or something like that. And many of them come from out of town to do it. So I
Oh
actually did
wow.
it for the first time with my family this past Memorial Day. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Did you run the whole time?
I did not. I don't run unless I'm being chased, but I kept up with my kids who were walking. So, it's fun. It's a scene. People are playing music. Every corner you turn, they're like passing things out. Like they pass out bacon and, spray you with a water hose. And it's a lot of fun.
Right. That was such an adult response. Like, I'm not running unless I have to run. Like, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, I
So,
get the steps in, but I'm
yeah,
good
I
on
know,
that.
right? Cause that's what 2.6 miles, correct?
It's
10K.
actually 6.2 miles with
6.2.
it
Oh, I was completely wrong.
reversing.
Yeah. Okay. For homeowners considering selling their homes and facing potential capital gains tax. I don't think we speak on capital gains tax too often here. So, what are some key factors that they should consider when maximizing their profits and potentially qualify for exemptions?
Yeah. So this is an important one in Boulder because a lot of people who are selling now are boomers that maybe moved here in the 70s, 80s, bought their home for, you know, $80,000, $100,000, maybe $300,000 if they bought in the last 20 years. And so now that their house is worth well over $1 million, they're considering that massive, tax burden, right? And
Mm,
so I'm not a tax professional, and I always advise my clients to consult a tax professional before
great
selling,
disclaimer.
to understand. But there are some, strategies in deferring or, just maximizing it the best you can. One way is if you've made improvements, especially when prepping for sale. So if you have an older home that you've lived in forever, it's a grandma special and nobody's done anything to it, you can deduct a certain amount of improvements made. So if you remodel that kitchen, update the flooring, put a new roof, those, certain maintenance items are not covered, but a lot of the cosmetic things that you can do to prep for sale can be deducted from that total amount. So if you bought your house and, it was, let's just say, to keep it simple, you bought it for 300,000 and you can sell it for 1 million. Well, that's a $700,000 difference that you potentially would have to pay in capital gains, and that's taxed somewhere between 15 and 20% on average. So if
Mm,
you are married, there is something called a homestead exemption, in which the IRS will deduct up to $500,000 of that profit. So if you're making 700, now your tax burden is more like 200. And if you spent 50K in updating your kitchen, now your tax burden is more like 150, right? And if you had to
mm,
pay, commissions and, all the costs associated with the sale, that's also deducted. And then if you still have a huge tax burden, there is a method called 1031 exchange. And so you have to involve a 1031 exchange intermediary. And so essentially you have
mm-hmm,
to take your funds that you get from the sale and put them into a specific 1031 exchange fund. And then there's a timing, right? So you have about, I think, 60 days to find a replacement property. It has to be of like kind. And then, 45 days to close on it from there, something like that. Don't quote me. That's why we refer to
mm.
professionals. But so you can defer. So you wouldn't be paying taxes on that until you go to sell that property again, until you tax, and unless you 1031 exchange again. So there's like 1031 exchange, investor strategy there, as well as some other strategies. You might want to talk to like an estate planner and put your home in an estate, especially if you feel like you're going to live there for the rest of your life and your children are going to inherit it, so that you can, defer some of that tax burden as well for your family members who are going to inherit your home. So there's definitely, some strategy there. I think my role is mostly played helping them maximize their gains when they sell,
Right,
but also
right.
strategize how much they can deduct based on, what kind of upgrades and things they can do. And then on the buy side, I work with investors with 1031 exchanges all the time. And that's just a timing thing. Other than that, there's a clause you put in the contract that says we're all cooperating on a 1031 exchange, but it really doesn't, it's no detriment to either party.
Hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that financial literacy right there. That's what's
Exactly.
necessary for that. If I don't have to pay taxes, show me how I don't have to pay taxes, or at
Mhm.
least defer taxes. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Or lessen
great to have
deferred,
that knowledge.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge difference between, paying it on 500,000 to 50, and how can we scale that number down?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Oh yes. Let's say you were starting from square one, Sherry. Back to the drawing board. You don't own any properties, but you're aspiring to own your first property. Knowing what you know now with the resources that are available in 2023, what approach would you take to owning a home?
That's a great question. I think one thing I learned from my mentor is to look at every property from an investment perspective. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think a lot of like a trap that first time homeowners fall into is, you know, covering like what they want and need. We talk a lot about needs and wants, but obviously there's a restraint as far as a budget. But I want a
Mm-hmm.
backyard and I want this and I want to be able to walk downtown, or those kinds of things. What I like to do is really, a more of a coaching angle when I work with first time home buyers, of like, what are your long term goals, right? And how do you see real estate playing out within those goals? And oftentimes people respond that real estate investing is their major, what they're going to rely on for retirement, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
how they approach it is important. And so I would look at every home from an investment perspective. If you had to, like, if you lost your job and had to relocate, could you rent that home and cash flow, right? So the mortgage
Right.
that you're taking on right now, is that, equal to or less than what you can rent it for? Right? That's, one consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Is there sweat equity? Is there, equity to be gained here? What kind of strategies can you use to get the best deal? Timing, I think in our market in particular, are like right now going into 4th of July, it kind of dies off for a little while. So it's a great time to be a buyer and to look for, a home where the seller's pretty motivated, right? So, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think I just try to look at what their kind of long term goals are. And me personally, I would say, all right, is it smart for me to maybe invest in a condo that I know is going to be super, super rentable? Maybe
Right.
I'm, 28 years old and I got a great job, out of college, I have my master's, and I can afford this cute condo that I know I can rent and will appreciate over time, and the rents will increase over time, and live there for 5 years, and then maybe use that home equity to go buy my first real home, right? And go buy a cute ranch
Right.
that needs to be updated, that needs a kitchen and needs flooring and paint, right? And put some sweat equity into it. So I just try to look at it from an investment perspective, instead of like, oh, that's the home of my dreams and I want to get
Correct.
there day one. Because a lot of first time homeowners, they're like, on Zillow and like, oh, this is my dream house. And they're on Pinterest and all that. And I'm like, that's real cute, but let's get real.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I love that perspective, because looking at it from any other way other than an investment will have your home essentially be a liability,
Hmm.
if you think about it, because I mean it's really just money that you're continuously pouring in. I mean, yeah, you're gaining equity, but that's based off, you're paying off your debt in appreciation going up, which isn't always guaranteed. But more than anything, if you find a way to think about earning cash flow from this property, renting it out, or whatever the case may be, Airbnb, or the case may be, now you're thinking of some really using your assets, really using what you invested in. So I like that you brought that up. I just wanted to touch on that very briefly, because not too many people think of it like that. So
Yeah.
great, Sherry. Thank you so much. We definitely appreciate you for pulling up a chair here at the closing table. At this point, if you have any last words and or want to tell the people how to reach out to you, please do so now.
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Sherrie Sells Boulder. I'm happy to help with, anyone interested in relocating. That's one of my specialties. I am one of the managing brokers at Porchlight Real Estate Group here. So if you're a local agent and you're looking to take your business to the next level, I'm happy to, give you a demo of all of the services and platforms that helped me personally double my business in the first year I was here.
Mm.
Um, Other than that, I just, want to tell everybody to be safe, be good, be a good person. And yeah, bless you all.
Beautiful, beautiful, wise words. We appreciate that, Sherrie. Thank you again for being here, taking time out of your busy schedule. Right now, for our YouTube audience watching, I see you because you see me. Hit that like button for us, please and thank you. It looks like a thumb sticking up hitchhiking. Make sure you also share the content and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platforms, please do the same. Give us a like, a 5-star rating, and subscribe for our latest content. Sherrie, I always like to leave our audience with a question so they can think on their way out the door. Are there any natural disaster events that you are not comfortable with living around, such as hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, earthquakes, etc.? Don't tell us now. Leave it in the comments. Besides that, talk to you next time.